she going to come up? Did they decide that at the beginning? Okay. Because does she know that? Because the advanced team said she likes to stand on the side. So whichever. Good afternoon, esteemed faculty and staff of Bison Nation, students, and members of our community. Thank you for being here. Particular greetings today to Carrie Salwa, Project Manager for Central Mass Regional Planning Commission, Jim Brett of the New England Council, President and CEO, Jamie Bosvert, Board of Trustees and Chair of our Academic Affairs Committee, Jim Brown, Senior Vice President of Berkshire Bank and a member of our Board of Trustees, as well as Kylie Gibbons, Chief of Staff to Senator Fatman. Thank you for being here today. This has already been an extraordinary year for Nichols College. In February, we earned business accreditation from the prestigious Association of Advanced Collegiate Schools of Business, AACSB, the longest-serving global accrediting body for business schools and the largest business education network connecting learners, educators, and businesses worldwide. Last week, we hosted the second annual President's Panel Series, which is a forum dedicated to addressing issues of national importance while elevating public discourse through engaging, respectful, but spirited debate. We filled this same room. Congressman Neal visited on Friday to present a $680,000 federal grant for an earmark project to help launch a degree program in intelligent business automation, focusing on digital literacy, ethics, learning, and collaboration. We are truly a college that is on the move. On the athletic front, our men's basketball team went on a historic route all the way to the Elite Eight. Our cheer team just arrived back from Florida this week with some hardware as they placed third nationally for their division, number 3 in the country. We're in full swing of spring athletics and guarantee we'll be advancing in postseason competition in many of our sports. Nichols College embraces greatness both in the classroom and on the ball fields. In just 25 days, we'll be inviting Josh Kraft, president of the New England Patriots Charitable Foundation, to speak at our undergraduate commencement ceremony at the DCU Center. Jim Brett, who is here with us today in the audience, thank you for being here, is the CEO and president of the New England Council. He'll be delivering the commencement address at our graduate ceremony that will take place on campus on Thursday, May 4th. And we could not be more elated to have them both speak at monumental events for our graduates and their families. Today, however, is a special day for all of us to culminate a great couple of weeks. We are honored to have with us our previous commencement speaker for Nichols College, former Massachusetts Lieutenant Governor Karyn Polito, who we refer to as Dr. Polito because she received an honorary degree as well, to join us in our conversation about her stellar career in public service, the challenges she and Governor Baker faced during their historic 8 years in office, and the opportunities available today in the Commonwealth for women in business and in politics. As I mentioned, the former Lieutenant Governor is no stranger to Nichols College. Not only did she serve as a commencement speaker, but her brother is also a Nichols graduate. Lieutenant Governor Polito's roots are right here in Central Mass, and we have all watched with great pride as she grew to become one of the most powerful and respected leaders of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and nationally. Without any further ado, Governor Polito.
Well, good afternoon. I feel very blessed and honored that there is a full room on this glorious day, this beautiful weather day. So thank you all for taking the time to come, especially the students. You have final days and weeks. Some of you, final, as you're heading into your graduation day and time here on this campus, and to others who are just starting out. So thank you all very much. Let me just say thank you to President Somasi and your faculty, your leadership team, to the Board of Trustees, particularly Jim and Jamie, who are here and active as members of the board, opening up their boardrooms and places to hopefully attract some of the students here and your talent to their workplaces. And to all of you in this community, for understanding the importance of the traditions and the offerings here at Nichols College, which is what I want to speak about a little bit today. So a couple things I did, obviously a little browsing around your website before coming here, and I saw a couple things that really kind of stood out to me. That the Nichols tradition of 200 years, and even when my brother was here back in 1986 when he graduated, a lot has changed. And the ability for you to pivot and incorporate new programming, whether it's managing the golf course and understanding the principles of running a business, or creating the Women's Leadership Institute, and I think that some of the members of the Leadership Institute are here. You're being strategic, but you're meeting the students where they're at and where they need to be in their future. And so I loved seeing all that, and I also loved the tradition of adding, liberal arts and business together, so that you are understanding the principles of running an organization, but also understanding how to communicate and write and deliver the message to whatever audience it might be through strong liberal arts education. So really great stuff. But really what stood out to me was the branding of your strategic plan. I love the message around embracing greatness. I think that's really two terrific words, but think about them. Embracing. I mean, you are like literally hugging and pulling in, making a part of you something. And greatness means you are your very best. You are going to the top. And when you put those two things together and you pack in a little bison pride, there is no stopping you. And I hope that as you come through the halls and you're interacting with professors and your mentors and outside business leaders, and you hit the stage to receive your diploma, you're feeling all of that, and perhaps even the weight of that on your shoulders when you graduate, because you should. So I'm supposed to be talking a little about my journey. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll have a nice conversation. So my journey took me to very unexpected places. And when I was thinking about college and where I'm at today, I mean, I clearly didn't know that this is where I would be at this stage in my career. But a couple of things that are really important, I think, to just highlight. That unexpected places, but there were moments on this journey that were really important to my future. And these are moments that you will encounter on your journey. And you already have, because you've already started your career path. And those moments require you to pause and say yes or no. And in those moments, I was able to push myself into areas that I was not comfortable, that was unfamiliar to me. And in those moments, I had some feelings I wanted to share with you, because these are feelings that there's no doubt come into your being when you're at these moments. And many people think about that moment and go, fear. I can't do that. That's not for me. I'm not, so shut it down. I'm not doing this. I was not held back by fear of failure, because failure, and you all know this, many people have said this to you, is not failure. It's not final. It's a learning opportunity. But what worried me the most in those moments was regret. And if I didn't take this step forward and do the thing that it's really burning up inside that I want to do, there'll be some day on my journey that I will say to somebody or say to myself, I wish I did that. And so if there's anything you take away from this little conversation today, is don't live with regrets. And so when I pushed myself out of that comfort zone, I was pushing myself to get to yes. And so this is what I'm going to try to explain in a few kind of words of wisdom to you. Getting to yes. So no surprise to you. There is absolutely no secret shortcut to success, right? So you think about your favorite musician, you think about your favorite athlete, you think about maybe someone in your family, maybe someone on this campus, maybe it is a friend, and you think about what makes them successful, right? It's a ton of hard work. It's relentless focus. It's getting up early, it's staying up late. It is routine, 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 discipline, discipline, discipline. These are the things that are really important, and you are already packing them into what I call your foundation. When you plant your feet firmly on something that is filled with all of those things, you can say yes. The other is, don't be surprised when there's a surprise, because there are always surprises, and you've already encountered that as well. But the surprise is something that means something's changed, something's evolved, something's different. And so when you are surprised, you have to think about, okay, what do I do to embrace this and evolve and change? And so for me, I had the unlikely path because when I was going to college, I ended up going to law school, not in the plan. I started my career as a lawyer, loved it, but I knew I wanted to volunteer in my hometown and get back to a place that was really good to me. And so then I volunteered, I become elected. Okay, how did that happen? May 1, 1995, 28 years ago, almost to the date. And then when I became elected, Governor Cellucci at the time called me up and said, you need to run for a seat in the legislature because we need someone like you to be able to get involved there. And then I served in the legislature, and then candidate Baker called me and said, I'd love for you to run and be my running mate. And then we become elected. I served for 8 incredible years with an amazing leader, an amazing group of people, and we got a lot of stuff done. So that's a message around change. Change will come, opportunities will come to you because you're gonna work really, really hard at what's in front of you. Don't be worried about way down there. Just really focus relentlessly on what's in front of you and do a really good job. And those calls will come because people will take notice. And then I would say the foundation that you're standing on and building today, with all of the skills and the programs and the resources, all that's packed underneath your feet. But it's not the same foundation that's going to serve you well in 10 years, 15 years, 25 years. So you got to fix your foundation when there's a crack. You got to fill those gaps. You got to keep nurturing yourself to be able to have the ability to say yes. I work on that foundation all the time. And as I enter the next phase in my career, I'm still packing into that foundation new mentors, new opportunities, new learning environment, whether it's a webinar or thinking about certificates or credentials to add to my foundation. This is lifelong for you. And so when you think about embracing greatness, you're embracing your future. And as you embrace that, the few things I just want you to hold close to you are to trust your gut, because you know when those feelings come inside and you just can't put them away, you got to do something with that. Say yes, figure out how to get there, and please, please, please don't live your life with any regrets. I have won, I have lost, I have fallen short, but I have no regrets. And so this is what brings us together today. A couple more things I just want to highlight is the Women's Leadership Institute. Thank you, thank you, thank you to the former president for starting the Leadership Institute. Why? It's intentional. You're intentional around empowering women to be able to succeed. And the way you're doing that is really important. First of all, you're gathering data and information, and you're reporting out on that to the world. Numbers don't lie. You're a business school, you know that. And that data is really important. 8% CEOs in Massachusetts, 33% women in the legislature, 28% mayors elected at municipal level. I was the 4th lieutenant governor out of 72, and thankful that my successor is also a woman, the 5th out of 73. So these are numbers that don't lie, and it says, number 2, we need to do a lot more work. I have focused intentionally around sexual assault, domestic violence, STEM education, and the kinds of things that will empower women. And for all of you who are part of the Women's Leadership Institute, keep doing it. There is a lot of opportunity in the future. And then finally, we're going to have a conversation, but I'm going to pack one more word into your foundation. And that is an important word, and that is civility. Now, you might look up civility in the dictionary, and it says polite. That is not what I'm talking about. You're polite people. But what it means is to have respect and tolerance, to actively listen and understand another's point of view. And what worries me is the lack of civility in social media, in media on the nightly news or wherever you're taking it in. And I don't want that to define you or your journey. So you need to be intentional around being civil and respectful and taking in the different points of view. And I can attest to the fact that when you do that, you will achieve greatness. I can attest to the fact that the way the Baker-Polito administration ran was all around civility and respect and actively listening. It made us better at what we do. And so for you, it's going to make you better. It's going to make you happier, and it's going to make you, therefore, successful at what you do. So congratulations in advance. I can't wait to see all of your stars rise. And I come here as a grateful citizen of this Commonwealth to know that the future is very bright as you embrace your greatness. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much, Governor, for those great remarks and a chance for us to hear a little bit about what you think we can do and where we're going with embracing greatness. But this is a chance for us to have a conversation and for all of us to learn a little bit more about what you're doing now. And you had an incredible 8 years as one of the most powerful executives in the Commonwealth. Where are you at now? What are you going to be doing now? What is the next step for Karyn Polito?
Well, as I mentioned to you, this is a journey, so there's always a new door that opens. For me, I've had a very full life of public service. I think I gave you the date 28 years ago when I was first elected. Had the opportunity to serve in the legislature, had the opportunity to serve in the executive branch, had the opportunity to serve as the chair of the Governor's Council, where the governor and I nominated a lot of individuals to become part of the judicial branch. So I feel like I've touched a lot of government. And I don't want to return back to the roots. My great-grandfather immigrated to this Commonwealth back in 1909 from Sicily, and eventually figured out how to start a business that's still in my family today. In fact, Karyn Polito, the graduate of Nichols, runs that business. And so I wanted to get back to the private sector and take the collection of experiences along my journey to the private sector and kind of reinforce in boardrooms the kinds of principles that I believe make an organization stronger. And so whether it's around social governance or risk management, I serve on the board of directors of Berkshire Bank. There's a lot of risk management to do. We're in a banking crisis and a lot of uncertainty in our economy. And to kind of pour in to the private sector the kinds of experiences and accumulation of the learnings through my career into making other organizations better.
That's terrific. Thank you. It's one of the items that the Baker-Polito administration did was redefine the relationship between states and cities, or states and municipalities. In fact, when you got into office, I believe your first act was Executive Order number 1 was prioritizing communities. That was your number 1 priority, and you implemented it. And really a great example was having that in place prior to COVID. And certainly that was an example of that relationship beforehand helped us navigate what was really the most difficult problem probably since the Second World War for society, the mobilization of society to react to that. What approach did you take in order to have this relationship between states and municipalities? And who did you meet with to kind of get this going or have that sort of symbiotic relationship that a lot of states don't have with cities?
Just a curiosity, how many of you live in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts?
Just a couple.
Just a couple. And some of you, New England, like Rhode Island, and okay, so the other bordering states. So I'm going to ask you a stump question. How many cities and towns are there in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts? Okay, the front row definitely knows the answer. So it's 351. So when Charlie Baker and I were campaigning for the opportunity and honor to become elected in 2014, both of us came in with municipal experience. So we understood that where people feel their quality of life, first and foremost, is where they wake up and go to bed every day, right? But it's also the level of government that is least participated in, but is a level of government that directly impacts you. Are your streets plowed? Is the trash picked up? Do your kids get to school on time? And what's the quality of the education? What's the quality of the public safety and services? I see the chief here. And yet it is underrepresented. So we knew when we were campaigning that municipal government matters, and we also knew that if we could strengthen and make better every community of this Commonwealth, 351 communities, no matter where situated, obviously Western Mass, the islands, and no matter how big or small, we will make that experience better for every person of this Commonwealth. And so coming into office, we wanted to incorporate that as a primary objective of our administration. And so the first executive order, the governor asked me to lead, and I had to figure out, and you're business people, so you're trying to figure out a process, like how am I going to figure out how to make communities better? They're all different. There's no one size fits all to this approach. So what did I do? I went out and listened. Call up, make sure, LG's coming, who's going to show up at this town hall, who's going to show up at this city hall. And in some places, it was a much more sophisticated team of people organized with presentations. And in other places, the police chief, the chair of the Board of Selectmen, and the sort of the manager of the community were all one person. So I got a sense real quick that this is not a one-size-fits-all approach, and we have to tailor and make sure that every community could become better through best practices and strategies and protocols and operationally better so that they can then deliver good services. And so we just elevated that and we said, if we're gonna make Massachusetts great, which is the campaign that we have, which is why I love Embracing Greatness, is that we're gonna have to make it work 351 ways. We do that, we're gonna knit together strong communities that will make Massachusetts a better place. And just fast forward, post-COVID, where people are choosing where to live, where it's more affordable, where their job is, if they can work remotely, it becomes increasingly more important for a place like the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which is a high-cost state, for people to feel like they're getting more for what they are investing in, their tax dollars in the higher cost of living here. They got to know that they're getting something really good for their services. Otherwise, they may choose, which would break my heart, especially your age and the students graduating someplace else to begin or carry on their journey, their career journey.
That's terrific. Looking back now, when we take a look at the campaign, and one of the items 8 years ago, almost 9 years ago now, one of the concerns people had was, would the administration follow through on their campaign commitments and how they would follow through on those. And one I have specifically was like the community compact. Can you elaborate on if you did and how you did with something like community compact as an example?
Well, the community compact is what I just described about the relationship between state and local government. Like, we are promising state to be a reliable and good partner to you, and you, community, are going to promise the state that you're going to incorporate the best practices and kinds of strategies that we think is really important for your financial and operational objectives. And so we campaigned on this, saying we're going to build strong communities. Okay, that's nice. People out in Western Mass would say, really nice to see you, Charlie and Karyn. We're never going to see you again when you get elected. Because most political people go where they were supported, right? These people voted for us, so therefore we'll go back and support them. We did not approach governing this Commonwealth like that, because when we were first elected, people might forget this, on the election night on 2014, it was undecided. We did not receive confirmation that we won until the next morning. So like half the people didn't vote for us. So we come into office and we knew we were not elected to just represent the people who voted for us. We were elected to represent all of the people of this Commonwealth in all the places in which they come from. And so we set out on that promise to fulfill it. First executive order, we started to make sure that our cabinet of secretaries embraced communities in every one of their secretariats. And we made sure in our budget that we included the promises of aid and resources and monies for grants for the best practices to be embedded in the local community. And then when a crisis occurs, whether it was snowstorms in 2015, that was
February of 15.
February of 2015, it was horrific, unlike this beautiful winter that we had. Or the gas explosions in Merrimack Valley, or COVID, the relationships that we built on trust and following through and listening to what the needs are and trying to answer those needs proved to be essential to the governor and to me and our team when the crisis happened. So it wasn't like crisis, oh no, what do we do? How are we going to form this relationship and communicate information? It was already baked in, which is another key piece to your foundation. The relationships that you're making at this school, the network that you are formulating will be a part of your life, career, But in every place that you begin to work and get involved in, those relationships matter. And it's not just a one way, it's really listening, actively listening to what people are saying to you, understanding it, and doing something with it. And the final point on that I would make, when the governor and I came in, we were very intentional around, remember I said like half the people didn't vote for us? We needed to go listen to them, right? Listen, what is it that you care about? What are your needs? What do you want to see state government do better for you? And to take that in as well. And when we surrounded ourselves with a diverse cabinet of secretaries, as you have a diverse leadership team here, really listening to the different points of view, that respectful and civil way of doing it, made us better at being your governor, lieutenant governor.
That's terrific. Just to follow on with that, is there that sort of relationship between the state and the cities? Obviously, we're in the Worcester area. We're part of the Worcester Consortium of schools, and we're interacting with those schools. What specifically is an example from the Worcester area that you have between the city-state relationship you might have some?
Well, I'm particularly proud of the Woo Sox, right?
It's a small one.
And Polo Park, but think about that. That was a major investment of business people in a community. I mean, let's face it, Worcester, you know, where we are, we're in the middle of the state. You have beautiful hills out here, but we have no ocean. We have no, you know, tourism specific asset here. But in Worcester is remembered as an industrial city where you have a lot of hardworking people, where you have great colleges and universities. So what was happening in Worcester, a lot of talent coming through the colleges and universities, but we wanted to make sure that that talent stayed. So you need jobs and opportunities for people, younger people, to be able to connect to. And the other is to have it affordable for young people to be able to stay, as well as have some fun and entertainment and things to do. So we invested heavily with Worcester around a housing development strategy to reimagine their downtown, reimagine Main Street, reimagine the Canal District, and sort of got that flywheel going where now people are investing in this city, more housing, more things to do. And when it came time to develop that part of the city for a potential ballpark, you needed a public-private relationship. You needed the city, you needed the state, and you needed private investment to come together. All of it. No one of it could make that happen. And when you had that kind of leadership, city, state, and private working together, it signals to others that this might be a really good place to invest. I can get stuff done. There's business permitting process that I understand. They're not going to prolong and make this more difficult. There's certainty. And you know in business, uncertainty is one of your biggest threats that you have to manage around. But when you force that uncertainty, that's an unforced error, right? So the example of Worcester was it took a lot of resources, the public-private partnership, and the strong leadership working together. And no one worry about, like, who's going to get credit? Like, stop, right? Nobody, just don't worry about, I did this or you did that. Like, put the credit, put that kind of noise aside. Just focus on getting the work done. Focus on the result. Focus on your objective. And it'll be a much more productive way of dealing with things.
Well, that was a big, such a wonderful park and such a great, so many opportunities for our students, but also all of us in the region to participate. So one of the items that I think that you transformed was the role of the lieutenant governor and what's taken place. I had been very close with Lieutenant Governor Rell in Connecticut, and I knew the role pretty well, but you transformed it. I watched it all happen here. And really, COVID-19 was part of that, I think. It gave you an opportunity to really, you were doing it the whole time, but it really was crystallized during COVID-19. I was wondering, what strategies did you employ to serve the people best as a lieutenant governor with it was really the Baker Polito administration, but how did you define that role for lieutenant governor to really help people?
Well, I get back to Charlie Baker and I coming into office together. So we already had formed that relationship, which was the way we were elected. We're separate on the ballot until the final election in November, but we campaigned and combined our resources and teamed up as candidates long before the first election day. So that doesn't have to happen. It was a choice that we made, which makes a lot of sense, right? When you're building out your team, don't you want people that you know and trust and have a relationship with? And so when we came into office, we knew that we had that, and we knew that we had common ideas that we wanted to work through, and I mentioned a few of those. The other piece was, COVID was a significant challenge for everyone. Everyone in life as we knew it is never the same. We're never going back to the way things were before COVID, whether it's you as an employer, you as an individual, or your family. Just things changed. But for us during COVID, a few basic things that are important, and it goes back to the Women's Leadership Institute about data. Right? We knew as a leadership team, we needed to not just do what we felt was the right thing, but we needed to prove it out. These were really significant decisions that came with a medical advisory team that we put together because we live in one of the most capable states for healthcare research and innovation around life sciences. So we were very fortunate to be able to tap into and formulate that advisory team. And then we used data to ground our decisions and then tether the communication to the public, which was almost daily at midday. People glued to the TV, there was nothing else to do, to what our message was. But we have heard over and over again that people appreciated that we explained why. Maybe they didn't like our decision, but we explained why we were making certain decisions, and it was based on data. The other piece was the governor, because of my strong ties to the municipalities and the relationships that I have made with municipal leaders and small business leaders across the Commonwealth, he said, I'd like you to chair the reopening of the Massachusetts economy part of this. I was very happy to do so. And I said I have to put together an advisory team of people who can help me understand what it will take to safely reopen your workplace. Now that's not a one-size-fits-all. Reopening an academic institution like this is very different than opening a small business retail or opening a manufacturing plant or opening a construction site. And so I put a small team of people, including women, people of color, small business, large business, and industry sectors that are really prominent here in the Commonwealth. And I kept the team small, around 15 people. Can't go too big, very unwieldy, we won't get to decisions. And so we kept it tight, and then we met over and over and over again and came up with a protocol that we phased in. I'm sure you all are familiar with it on the faculty end and the administrative end, that allowed us to safely, in a phased approach, reopen the Commonwealth. And unlike other places in the country, we never turned back into a closure mode like some other places did. So I was very grateful to have that experience, and as important as it was, and also at the same time solving problems like housing and tamping down on evictions, childcare, so people could return back to work and make sure that their kids were accessing the kind of care that was important. Very complicated, but having the right people around us helped us do our job the best that we could for the people of this Commonwealth.
Thank you, that's great. A couple more if I could before we turn it over. I have a couple that beyond your efforts in the communities, you also did a lot of work and spearhead initiatives to combat scourge on our society, sexual assault and domestic violence. And on top of that, you also chaired the Council on STEM, which is near and dear to everybody in here's heart, I think, as well as the Seaport Economic Council. So how do those approaches all, you had COVID, you had the community efforts, you had, those are spearheading major initiatives, plus you have these other ones that you did. What was your common theme of your strategic approach to working in all these areas? How did you best articulate the problem and then how to solve it, whether on the Economic Council, the Seaport Economic Council, or on the STEM Council, or even in the task forces on domestic violence?
Yeah. These were areas I was passionate about. It was, as a co-governor, managing the day-to-day operations of government with Charlie was incredible. But I also have areas of passion that I wanted to add my voice to. And I knew in a role as lieutenant governor, had a pretty big stage that I could deliver message on. And that was important to be able to take on initiatives that I felt would be impactful around creating more opportunity. I go back to my great-grandfather immigrated to this Commonwealth of Massachusetts, like so many others from Europe at that time, because of opportunity, chasing the dream of being able to work hard, and build a life better for his family. But as I got around and through places in the Commonwealth, it wasn't like that for everyone. And so I wanted to make sure that there were certain things fundamental could happen, like, for instance, sexual assault and domestic violence. There was a passion point that I had in law school. It was a passion point I brought through the legislature, also in the municipal government. And then I knew that I could chair this council and bring together all of the stakeholders around sexual assault and domestic violence. But why? Because for women, mostly, if you have an unsafe home setting, that holds you back from being able to achieve the fullness of your education, the skill that you need, the certificate or credential that would advance your employment, holding down a job, being a good mother, being a good family member. I said, so that is just fundamental to the ability to empower yourself economically if you are empowered with a physically and emotionally safe life. So I knew that we had to do a whole lot more in that area. STEM, same theory, that STEM education, 40% of our workforce here in Massachusetts is tied to the STEM industry. And we have the most innovative economy in the country, I'd say by far. And that's because a lot of the work that you're doing here and your counterparts in higher education. But STEM education, to me, what I was seeing is there would be pockets and places that it was really exceptional. Places that maybe have a lot more resource to devote to STEM education. Maybe even parents and people that could help their kids gain access to these programs. But what about the communities where you have a lower income setting and you have less quality education? Like, these kids are not going to be able to access the kind of skills and education that they deserve to have so that they can see themselves in these great jobs and careers that Massachusetts has to offer. So we can do better. So chairing the STEM Council, to me, was all around opportunity and building out hands-on experiential learning from kindergarten through your elementary school, building on that in middle school, especially for girls, making sure that they stay engaged in science and math instead of retreat, saying, oh no, this is too hard, not for me. Keeping the girls involved so they get into a career pathway in high school and start earning credits early in high school to get to college so that affordability and access that way is not an issue. And I was so pleased to see in the Globe this week that Massachusetts has nearly tripled the amount of low income and kids of color participating and achieving high results on their advanced placement courses. So I said to myself, all of this work over these 8 years mattered because we've changed the way kids are learning in Massachusetts, much more experiential learning, many more internships. I'm glad to see the employers so engaged here at Nichols, and many of you as students accessing those internships after freshman, sophomore, junior year. That's how you're going to figure out your first job. Won't be your last job, but your first job will get you there. So STEM education was another one of those pathways. And the Seaport Economic Council was just like, oh, I love the communities, but I love the coastal communities. We're Massachusetts. We have 78 coastal communities, but we also have climate change. And we have old infrastructure in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Everyone knows it. And so we needed a program around not only the coastal communities, but every community to build more resilient infrastructure so that we could withstand the pressures of climate on this Commonwealth. And the work of the Seaport Council was really extraordinary because the blue economy and marine science is a big part of our history, but the evolution of those sciences into marine biology And yes, offshore wind and hydroelectricity and all the kinds of new and emerging industry sectors that are part of our Commonwealth all were kind of intertwined into the Seaport Council. So long and short of it, I've had a lot of fun in my career as a public servant, but I clearly worked it. I worked really hard at it, and more opportunities have come from it. And the kinds of learnings on that journey that I can now apply in the private sector will be impactful in other places, not only in workforces, but in people's lives and the kinds of businesses that I'm associated with and with the kind of work that they do to transform people and places. And so my journey continues, and I just wanted to impart to you that you might be sitting here saying, I'm going to go do this in my life, but as you can see in my life, what I thought when I was sitting in lecture halls in college turned in very different directions, but the core principles that have guided me all the way through still guide me today.
Before I turn over some of the students and folks for quick questions, I wanted to ask, I have to ask you this. Is there any political future, either state or federal, for Lieutenant Governor Polito?
That's like a softball for a political type like me, and someone who's had an uneventful career path. I guess you'd never say never. However, I am really focused on, as I said to you, focus on what's in front of you. I am so focused on the work that I'm doing at Berkshire Bank and at some of the other boards that I am part of, and I'm learning so much. It's different than what I've been accustomed to in government, and the learning is exciting, it's challenging, it's engaging, and it's keeping me quite busy.
We appreciate very much. Carrie, is there anybody, are there any questions that anybody has? Carrie has a microphone right over here. If you can take a couple more, we appreciate your candor and time.
Hi. I wrote down a question for you. I know that you mentioned that you were a lawyer before doing what you do now. Was there a specific event or reasoning that made you decide to do public service?
Yes. So I graduated college, went off to law school, started my career as an attorney in my hometown area. I knew, as one thing I did know when I was in college and after I finished school, I was going to come back home to the area because this is where the family roots are, it's where my family history started, it's where the family business is. I'm going to come back and be a part of this community and try really hard to make it better. So being a lawyer was one way, but I also knew that if I could volunteer in my hometown, how cool would that be? I could be, my voice would matter on a board. So I literally went up to town hall, I met the town manager and said, I'm back in town, I would love to just serve whatever you need. And he said at the time, we have a need on the Zoning Board of Appeals. I said, I don't really know a lot about that, but I think zoning's important because it kind of organizes the way things are built and how a community evolves. And so, yeah, sure, I'd be happy to try it. And I tried it, and I loved it. I'm like, oh my God, you're angry people, you're happy people, you're all sorts of confusion at these meetings, and I'm meeting all these interesting people, and this is really cool. So I loved it. I wanted more. That's a pivot point. I put myself in a place I really didn't know anything about, but it was important to me to volunteer. This is what they needed, and I really loved it. And so when there was an opening to run for office, now this was like new, I'm like, I'm gonna run for office. It was in 1995. I was engaged to my incredible now husband, and he should have run then. I was to be married June 24th, and election day was May 1. I think I mentioned that. And I was so consumed with standouts and lawn placements and the debates and like everything, more than the usual things that you are worried about as a bride-to-be. And I was consumed. I was top vote getter. There was 2 seats, three people running for 2 seats. I'll never forget that election night. And so I started serving in an elected office, and I love that too. And it was a different constituency, and you think about things a little different on the elected side. But working that, and I'm still a lawyer doing all that, but like I was really excited about the public service piece. And that's when the governor, Cellucci, called and said, you're really doing a great job over there in Shrewsbury. Might you consider running for a seat in the legislature? You're a woman, you're a small business owner, you're a lawyer, you understand municipal government. You're kind of like me. For those of you who know Paul Salucci from Central Massachusetts, we had a very similar family history, and he said, we need you to run. And I followed that path, and those feelings about I'm not going to regret trying to do this, more so in my life. So thank you for the question.
All right, so I have a question for you. Politics is so decisive. Would you still choose public service if you had to begin your career today?
If I had to, what say?
Begin your career today, would you still choose public service?
Oh, definitely, yes. Yes, and I will figure that piece out as I'm consumed right now with the portfolio of business advising. There will be a piece that I can continue to serve at, might be as a volunteer in a position that I can continue to make a difference. I do very much enjoy that part of life. So yes, I hope the question that you could ask yourselves, you don't have to raise your hand, that you too, wherever you find yourself living, can figure out where you might volunteer your time. It doesn't have to be elected. Not everyone's suited to put themselves in the political arena. It can be, nasty at times. Unfortunately, even these times can be really tough on candidates. But public service matters. It matters who serves as your school committee member, as your mayor, as your town meeting member. These positions matter. They're making decisions, their own budgets and policies and programs that directly affect your quality of life. So the answer is yes. I mean, that's a public service important, but I happen to be biased. I think everyone should have a role to play in public service, and there's many opportunities for that.
What is your proudest accomplishment from your time in office?
I have to have one. No, I guess there's a couple things I would say to that, because there's a result answer and then there's a behavior answer, right? So the result answer is, I would say, having visited, not just like a drive through 351 cities and towns, but clearly getting to all 351 cities and towns of this Commonwealth, and then establishing the relationships and getting results. Like, there's a place called Mount Washington, Massachusetts, beautiful spot, all the way out west, southernmost point, borders New York and Connecticut. And I went there, and I so appreciate my presence there. But what I learned is they had no access to broadband, right? This is Massachusetts, this was 8 years ago. And I learned that there were 53 communities that had no broadband access. Think about that. And so my proudest achievement is having that opportunity to visit and follow through and deliver on essential infrastructure and create more opportunity in those 351 places. The other would be the way, and you're gonna figure out your results, you're gonna work hard, you're gonna get results in your jobs and the things that you're associated with. But it's how you conduct yourself on this journey that will also define you. I was very proud of the way Governor Baker and I conducted ourselves when we took office, embracing bipartisanship, embracing, active listening, embracing, stiff arm that noise. That's just going to be a complete distraction for us to be able to focus on the results and get the job done for the people of this Commonwealth. We called it the get stuff done mantra. And so I'm proud also of the how we conducted ourselves. And I think it's probably one of the reasons, bless you, why we earned multiple times becoming the most popular administration in the country, because of the manner in which we led. I mean, let's face it, everyone, this is a deep blue state in Massachusetts. I think you're down to like 9% Republicans. By the way, did you know we're Republican candidates that served as governor, lieutenant governor? But we didn't serve as Republican governors just to serve Republicans. We served all the people and brought that moderation and ability to really listen, focus on the work, and get stuff done, and to communicate that to the people of this Commonwealth. So I think my answer is those two accomplishments I'm particularly proud of.
You have time for one more, Carrie?
I thought that there's two hands. I think that's great.
Yes. What did you do to recenter and focus during the stressful times of COVID, and how did you really stay centered during your time in office?
I don't even want to go there. It was just, I'll tell you a couple things there. My commute was great. There's no one going into Boston. I mean, I was being the commuting time during pre-COVID when we were incentivizing employers with tax credits to try to get them to have their workforce go remote in part or kind of work differently. That didn't happen, but it did after COVID. But during COVID, I got in and out. We went into the building every day, so that helped. I mean, I loved that piece of it, getting in, being with the team, like the intensity around the work and the decision making was pretty powerful. But it didn't just happen in the building, in the office. It was like 24/7. It was always something to solve for. It was always a problem nobody's ever solved for before. We had to figure it out. So family, my family is most important to me. I have an incredible husband. Back to that story in 1995, he's supported me all the way. I would never have been able to serve as I have without this incredible partner in my life, in my husband. And two amazing children. I have one it's a freshman in college, plays football up at Bowdoin, and I have a junior in high school, and she's going to play field hockey in college. And just being connected to their lives and their sports and their activities clearly helped me and my family work through those challenges. So family's the center of my life.
Well, on that, I think we can conclude and say thank you so much for taking the time, Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you. All the best.